everyone, welcome back to another video. For today's video, I wanted to combine two of my favorite things, Baldur's Gate character creation and anime. So I tried recreating some of my favorite Jujutsu Kaisen characters in Baldur's Gate. There will be a link in the description for each build and the mods I used. Starting off with the man himself, Satoru Gojo. I went with a high elf for Gojo because he has that ethereal look to him, and because of high elf's affinity for magic. For class, I went with a wild magic sorcerer, mostly because Gojo is a sorcerer and can be a bit chaotic like wild magic. I went with noble for his background since he's the head of the Gojo clan. For Gojo's blindfold, I used the Veils of Faerun mod, which is actually what inspired this whole idea. I found the mod while scrolling through the Baldur's Gate mod page on Nexus, and as soon as I saw the upper half veils, I immediately thought of Gojo. Moving on to Gato, just like Gojo, I went with a high elf for mostly the same reasons. I also chose sorcerer for class, but I went with shadow magic instead of wild magic. I think another option for class would be wizard in the School of Conjuration, since Gato can summon curses. And for Gato's background, I went with charlatan because they're good manipulators, and Gato is a cult leader. Now, I don't have a mod to match Gato's plugs, so instead I went with lots of hoops from Ghoul's Custom Piercings. It's basically like Bard Rings from the vanilla game, but with thicker hoops. I don't have much of a reason for why I went with these other than I liked how they looked, and I think they'd look good on Gato. Next up is Nanami, who is part of the reason I started JJK. Before I even knew what it was, I was seeing clips from Shibuya when Nanami grabbed Haruta by the ponytail, and if you know, you know. I had to find out what it was from. Anyway, for race, I went with human, and for class, I went with monk. Specifically, I would go with Way of the Open Hand once you can pick a subclass. For his background, I went with guild artisan since Nanami spent a few years as a salaryman. These round silver glasses from Trip's accessory collection are the closest thing I have to the glasses Nanami wears, and he didn't look right without them. Now, if you're going Way of the Open Hand Monk, I would go at it unarmed. But if you're going down a different path or just want to use a weapon, then I would go with a mace. Why? I don't really know. Nanami just strikes me as a mace guy. Next up is Maki. For her, I went with human for the race and fighter for the class. Once you can pick a subclass, I'd go with champion and soldier for her background. I based this off her post Shibuya look, mostly just because I like the way the short hair looks. Sticking with a similar theme, we're moving on to Toji. Just like Maki, I went with a human fighter with a soldier background, but for subclass, I'd go with Battle Master instead of Champion. I'll be honest, I don't love this hairstyle for Toji, but it's the closest one I have to his that is compatible with body type 4. So, Toji isn't one of my favorites. I don't dislike him, but I don't love him either. My girlfriend, on the other hand, loved him from the moment he came on screen. I didn't get the appeal until I saw his fight scene on the beach during the Shibuya arc. Then I got it. Now, moving on to one of my favorites, it's Chozo. For him, I went with a Dusk Half Elf and a Warlock class with the Fiend as his pact. Now, I think there is a mod that adds blood magic to either wizard or sorcerer, which would be more fitting, but I didn't see it until after I recorded this. For his background, I decided to go with Urchin because it seemed fitting. For Chozo's hair, I had to go with a hair down look because I don't have a hairstyle that comes close to his ponytails. Really, you could probably use any ponytail or bun hairstyle, but I didn't like how they looked. Next up is Mahito, who is another one of my favorites. I call him a silly little guy who commits atrocities, and my girlfriend calls it a problem. For real though, I do really like Mahito as a character. Anyway, I would play Mahito as a Dark Urge for obvious reasons. For race, I went with Avendrow, Half Elf, and for class, I went with Wizard. Once you can pick a subclass, I would go with the necromancy school. For scarring, I don't have anything that's liked his stitched together look, but I liked the look of Scar 8. I have tried to be manga accurate with all these recreations, but I have to stray from that when it comes to Mayato's eye color because I love how the heterochromia from the anime looks. Lastly is Sukuna. For race, I went with human since he used to be human, and for class, I went with barbarian and would eventually subclass into wild magic. For his background, I went with noble since he is the king of curses. For his tattoos, I went with the Caldera tattoo style. It obviously doesn't match his tattoos, but I liked how it looked, and it was the closest I could get. I tried my best to base this off of Sukuna's true form. You just have to imagine him with some extra appendages. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, and let me know in the comments who was your favorite. Who should I make next? And who do you think the JJK characters would romance in Baldur's Gate?